The October rain had been falling for 3 days when Thomas Brennan's cart finally turned up the long avenue toward Blackmore Estate. You might think a man who spent his life examining the bones of great houses would grow tired of such approaches, but Brennan still felt that familiar quickening. Each estate held its own mysteries, though usually they involve nothing more exotic than poorly drawn flues and birds' nests in unfortunate places. The house emerged from the mist like something half-remembered from a dream. Its limestone facade darkened with moisture, its 64 windows reflecting the gray sky like cataracts. Built in the reign of George III, expanded under George IV, and now owned by one of those new men who'd made their fortune in railways and speculation rather than land and tradition. Brennan knew the type well enough. They hired him to maintain the architectural dignity they'd purchased, but never quite inherited. "Mind the puddle there, Timothy," he called to his apprentice, who was already jumping down from the cart with the enthusiasm only 16 years could muster. The boy splashed directly into the water Brennan had warned him about, then grinned sheepishly. 3 months into his apprenticeship, and the lad still acted as if each new house might contain wonders rather than soot, dead birds, and occasionally the skeletal remains of cats who'd chosen the wrong path through the maze of flues. The great oak door opened before they could knock. Houses like this always knew when tradesmen arrived. Mrs. Brennan had once said, may she rest in peace, that the rich had a sixth sense for anyone who might present them with a bill. The butler who greeted them looked like he'd been pressed from the same mold as every other butler Brennan had encountered. Tall, austere, with an expression suggesting he'd detected an unpleasant odor but was too well trained to mention it. "Mr. Brennan, you're expected." "His lordship requests you begin with the main drawing room." A pause, during which the butler's eyes evaluated Timothy like a horse trader examining questionable stock. "The boy may wait in the servants' hall." Brennan nodded, already running through his mental inventory. 14 main chimneys visible from outside, which likely meant 40 to 50 flues inside, given the age and typical construction of such houses. The drawing room request was interesting. Usually they wanted him to start with the kitchens or the master bedrooms, the places where constant fires made problems most apparent. The drawing room, when he entered it, explained everything. Or rather, the hearth within it did. Massive thing, carved from a single block of Kilkenny marble, with elaborate scroll work depicting oak leaves and acorns, the Blackmore family symbols, though Lord Blackmore had simply purchased those along with everything else. But it wasn't the craftsmanship that made Brennan pause. It was the way the housemaid, polishing the grate, glanced at it nervously and crossed herself when she thought he wasn't looking. "That's the truth, Hearth," she whispered, apparently unable to help herself. Irish servants, Brennan had noticed, always wanted to warn you about the peculiarities of their domain, as if sharing the burden might lighten it. "They say when someone tells a lie near it, the flames turn green as spring grass." Brennan kept his expression neutral, a skill essential in his trade, where showing skepticism about an employer's beliefs could cost you a contract. "And does it? Turn green, I mean?" The girl, Bridget, she said her name was, nodded vigorously. "Twice I've seen it myself. Once when the grain merchant swore his wheat had no rot, and again when her ladyship's cousin claimed she'd never met that gentleman from Dublin." She lowered her voice further. "His lordship, he conducts all his important business in this room now. Says it keeps men honest." The chimney itself was a masterwork of engineering, Brennan had to admit, as he began his preliminary examination. The flue drew perfectly, creating that subtle pull of air you could feel on your palm when you held it near the opening. But there were oddities. The mortar around certain stones showed signs of recent work. perhaps within the last 5 years, coinciding with Lord Blackmore's purchase. The damper mechanism was more complex than necessary for a fireplace this size, with additional controls whose purpose wasn't immediately apparent. He was on his knees, peering up into the darkness of the flue with his mirror and lamp, when Lord Blackmore himself appeared. Brennan knew him by reputation before sight. Cornelius Blackmore, who'd started as a surveyor's assistant and ended with enough railway shares to buy himself into the landed gentry. A compact man with the kind of careful grooming that suggested he'd learned its importance rather than inherited it. His 55 years showed mainly in the calculating wariness of his eyes. "Finding everything in order, Brennan?" His accent held traces of Cork City, deliberately smoothed but not entirely erased. "I trust you'll be thorough. We've important guests coming next week." Brennan extracted himself from the fireplace, knees protesting. 38 years took their toll on a man who spent half his life crouching and climbing. "I'll need to examine the full run of this flue, my lord. The drawing's unusual for a room this size. Multiple channels, by the look of it." "Yes, well." Blackmore's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The previous owner had eccentric ideas about heating efficiency. Made modifications throughout the house. Part of why I need a proper man to sort through it all." The morning of October 16th brought one of those crystalline autumn days that made Ireland look like God's own garden, at least until the next rain came. Brennan had been working since dawn, mapping the Byzantine network of flues that ran through Blackmore Estate like blood vessels through a body. Timothy held the measuring tape while Brennan sketched, noted, and occasionally muttered observations that the boy dutifully recorded in his apprentice notebook. The complexity was remarkable. Whoever had modified these chimneys possessed both engineering brilliance and what seemed an almost perverse desire for complication. Hidden channels branched off main flues, some leading nowhere, others connecting to rooms in unexpected ways. It reminded Brennan of those puzzle boxes his wife had loved, layers within layers, each revelation leading to another mystery. He was examining the library chimney when the commotion began. Carriages on gravel, voices raised in greeting. The particular bustle that meant money had arrived. Through the window, Brennan watched a well-appointed coach disgorge a man who could only be London merchandise. The cut of his coat, the polish of his boots, the way he surveyed the estate like an assessor calculating value. "That'll be Mr. Whitmore," Bridget said, appearing with tea he hadn't requested but gratefully accepted. The girl had a talent for materializing with information. "Come about the railway expansion. His lordship's been preparing for weeks." Gerald Whitmore looked exactly like what he was, 48 years of successful speculation wrapped in expensive wool. Brennan had encountered the type before, men who treated Ireland like a business opportunity rather than a nation. Not that Brennan was particularly political, but a man noticed things when he spent his life in other people's houses, hearing conversations drift up through the flues he was cleaning. By evening, the negotiations had moved to the drawing room. Brennan, working late in the adjoining study, could hear voices through the wall, though not specific words, the rumble of masculine discussion, occasional laughter that sounded more strategic than genuine. He was packing his tools when Timothy burst in, eyes wide with excitement. "Mr. Brennan, sir, you must come see." The boy practically dragged him to the servants' stair, where a small crowd had gathered. Through a crack in the door, servants always knew exactly where to observe their betters. They could see into the drawing room. Lord Blackmore sat in his chair like a king holding court. Whitmore across from him, papers spread on the table between them. The fire burned cheerfully in the truth hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. "My word as a gentleman," Whitmore was saying, his voice carrying clearly now. "The Belfast line will be profitable within 2 years." The flame flickered green. Not dramatically, not like something from a penny dreadful, but unmistakably green. Just for a moment, like copper thrown on a fire. Whitmore jerked back as if slapped. Lord Blackmore's expression didn't change, but something in his posture suggested satisfaction. "The hearth suggests otherwise, Mr. Whitmore." "This is preposterous." Whitmore stood so quickly his chair toppled. "What manner of trickery?" "No trick, sir. This room has a quality. Call it what you will, supernatural, divine providence, or simply something science hasn't explained yet. But lies spoken here reveal themselves." Blackmore's voice carried the confidence of a man holding 4 aces. "Now, would you care to revise your projections?" Whitmore's face cycled through several colors, none of them healthy. He gathered his papers with shaking hands, muttering about consultation with partners, needing time to review figures. Within minutes he was gone, his coach clattering away into the darkness. Brennan found himself summoned to the drawing room within the hour. Lord Blackmore stood before the hearth, staring into the now normal flames like a man reading prophecy in the coals. Lady Blackmore sat in the corner, her 32 years carrying the kind of beauty that came from good bones rather than youth, her expression unreadable as she worked at her embroidery. "You've heard, I assume," Blackmore said without preamble. "Servants gossip, and you've been working among them." Brennan chose his words carefully. In his experience, the powerful preferred honesty that didn't challenge their authority. "I've heard stories about the hearth, my lord." "Stories?" Blackmore turned, his eyes sharp. "That's what Whitmore will call it. Stories and tricks. He'll spread word in Dublin and London that I'm either a charlatan or a fool who believes in fairy tales." He moved to his desk, pulled out a leather purse that made a satisfying heavy sound when he set it down. "I need you to prove otherwise." The sum he named would keep Brennan's business solvent for 6 months. Would have paid for better doctors for Mary, maybe, if such things could rewrite history. Would certainly provide Timothy with proper tools instead of hand-me-downs. "You want me to prove the hearth is genuinely supernatural?" "I want you to examine it with your expertise. Document its construction, its peculiarities. Write a report that shows it couldn't be faked. Your reputation for honesty is well known, Brennan. People trust you." Blackmore paused. "You're Catholic, aren't you? Your people still believe in mysteries?" It was delicately phrased prejudice, the kind Brennan had navigated his entire professional life. Yes, he was Catholic, though more by heritage than conviction these days. Yes, his people, as Blackmore put it, maintained faith in things beyond the material. But Brennan himself believed in physics, in the behavior of heat and air, in explanations that could be measured and proven. "I'll need complete access," he said finally. "Every inch of the chimney system, no restrictions." "Granted. And my apprentice assists me throughout." A pause. "If necessary." Lady Blackmore spoke for the first time, her voice carrying a slight accent Brennan couldn't place. "And if you find it's merely tricks, Mr. Brennan, what then?" Her husband's jaw tightened, but Brennan caught something else in her expression. Hope, perhaps, or calculation? He'd learned to read faces in his profession. People revealed themselves when discussing their home's intimate problems. "Then I document what I find, my lady. The truth, whatever it might be." Patrick O'Sullivan watched Brennan work with the intense focus of a man calculating odds. The estate steward had appeared early on October 18th, just as Brennan began his systematic dissection of the drawing room's chimney system. 42 years of managing other people's property had given O'Sullivan a particular way of standing, not quite servant, not quite master, but something uncomfortably between. His lordship values efficiency, O'Sullivan mentioned, apropos of nothing, while Brennan measured the flue's interior dimensions. Doesn't like investigations that drag on unnecessarily. Brennan continued working, letting silence do what words couldn't. He'd found that powerful men's servants often filled quiet spaces with more information than they intended. Sure enough, O'Sullivan shifted his weight, cleared his throat. That London fellow, Whitmore, he's already telling tales in Cork. Claims his lordship is running some sort of confidence game. Timothy, holding the lamp steady for Brennan's examination, nearly dropped it. The boy hadn't yet learned to be furniture when adults discussed delicate matters. Brennan steadied the lamp without comment, noting how O'Sullivan's eyes tracked the movement. The chimney's interior revealed its secrets reluctantly. The original Georgian construction was superb, smooth limestone channels that drew air like they were breathing. But the modifications were something else entirely. Additional channels had been carved, creating a complex network that defied conventional heating logic. Why would anyone need 3 separate paths for smoke from a single hearth? "Bridget, more light here," Brennan called, and the housemaid appeared with candles. She'd taken to following his investigation with an interest that seemed more than professional. As she knelt to position the lights, she spoke quietly. "My grandmother worked here, you know, back when the old family owned it. She said strange things happened even then, though not with the hearth, with the walls. Voices carrying where they shouldn't." O'Sullivan's expression soured. "Servants' superstition. Pay it no mind, Brennan." But Brennan did mind. In his experience, servants' stories often contained more truth than their masters' official histories. He made a mental note to speak with Bridget privately. For now, though, he focused on the physical evidence before him. The recent mortar work he'd noticed before was even more extensive than he'd initially thought. Someone had opened up significant sections of the chimney within the last 5 years, then sealed them again. The work was expertly done. You'd need trained eyes to spot it. But why? What had they been adding or removing? He was lying on his back, mirror-angled to see around a particularly sharp bend in the flue, when he noticed the inconsistency. The draft patterns were wrong. Air was moving in ways that suggested an opening where no opening should be. He traced the flow with smoke from his pipe, watching how it eddied and swirled in patterns that spoke of hidden spaces. "Timothy, fetch my long probe from the cart, the one with the articulated end." While the boy ran off, Brennan considered what he was finding. The modifications weren't random. They'd been planned by someone who understood both construction and misdirection. This wasn't the work of a simple tradesman following orders. This was architecture with intent. Lady Blackmore appeared in the afternoon, moving through the room like she was checking on the help rather than investigating the investigation. But Brennan noticed how her eyes lingered on his diagrams, how she positioned herself to overhear his notes to Timothy. "My husband sets great store by this hearth," she said, running her fingers along the mantelpiece. "It was one of the things that attracted him to the property. The cellar made quite a production of demonstrating its qualities. And you, my lady? Do you believe in its abilities?" She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that revealed nothing while suggesting everything. "I believe in what I can see, Mr. Brennan. And I've seen the flames turn green when lies are told. A pause. I've also seen street conjurers make doves appear from empty hats. After she left, Brennan found himself thinking about her words. Street conjurers. Misdirection. He looked again at the chimney's elaborate modifications. What if the complexity itself was the misdirection? What if the real mechanism was something simpler, hidden within the elaborate maze? That evening he met Father Doyle for their regular chess game at the village inn. The priest, 61 years of wrestling with his parishioners' souls and their more earthly concerns, had already heard about the investigation. "The Blackmore hearth, is it?" Father Doyle moved his bishop with the confidence of a man who'd already seen 5 moves ahead. "There have been stories about that house for 40 years, though they change with each telling, like all good stories do." "What kind of stories?" "Oh, the usual. Lights in windows of empty rooms, voices in the walls, and yes, the magical hearth that knows truth from lies." The priest's eyes twinkled with intelligence. "Mind you, I've noticed that miracles often cluster around places where money changes hands. Curious how the divine intersects with commerce." Brennan moved his knight, buying time to think. "You don't believe in it, then?" "I believe in many things, Thomas. I believe in God, in the redemption of souls, and in the capacity of men to deceive themselves and others with equal enthusiasm." He captured Brennan's poorly defended rook. "I also believe that the previous owner of Blackmore Estate was a man of scientific interests and theatrical inclinations." Make of that what you will. Walking back to the estate under a canopy of stars, Timothy chattering about the day's discoveries, Brennan found himself thinking about truth and its relationship to power. Lord Blackmore used the hearth to intimidate business rivals, but who had given him that power? And more importantly, who else knew the secret of its operation? The breakthrough came, as they often did, from Timothy's clumsiness. October 20th dawned gray and bitter, with the kind of wind that found every gap in a man's clothing. Brennan had been working since before light, following the anomalous draft patterns deeper into the chimney's hidden architecture. The boy, eager to help, had overreached with the measuring rod and struck something that rang hollow where solid stone should be. "Sorry, Mr. Brennan, I didn't mean to—" "Do it again." Brennan's voice carried the controlled excitement of a hound catching scent. "Same spot, but gently." The hollow sound repeated, unmistakable now. Behind what appeared to be solid stonework lay empty space. Brennan ran his fingers along the mortar lines, feeling for the telltale ridges of a concealed joint. There, so subtle he'd missed it 3 times, a section of stone that wasn't mortared but fitted. Pressing, pulling, twisting, until finally the stone pivoted on a hidden pin, revealing darkness beyond. The space was ingenious. A chamber no larger than a coffin stood upright, carved into the massive chimney breast. But its position was perfect, directly above the main flue, with a clear line of sight down to the hearth through a bronze viewing piece disguised as decorative metalwork. More importantly, a small hinged hatch opened directly into the chimney's throat, positioned so anything dropped through would be carried by the draft directly into the flames below. Timothy held the lamp while Brennan examined the chamber's contents. Copper filings in a leather pouch, fine as flour. A thin metal rod for operating the hatch from within. And something else. Scratches on the stone, as if someone had been keeping count. 43 marks in groups of 5. 43 times someone had hidden here, turning truth into theater. "We should tell his lordship immediately," Timothy whispered, awe and fear mixing in his voice. Brennan closed the hidden stone carefully, making sure it seated properly. His mind was working through implications, each more troubling than the last. This wasn't just trickery. This was systematic deception, built into the very bones of the house, and the craftsmanship suggested it had been here long before Lord Blackmore's arrival. He found Bridget in the kitchen, supervising the preparation of dinner. She saw his expression and immediately led him to the servants' hall, away from curious ears. "You found something," not a question. "I need information." "The previous owner. What do you know about him?" She glanced around nervously. "Lord Ashford died 5 years ago. No direct heirs. He was peculiar. My grandmother said he loved experiments, theatrical performances, built a laboratory in the East Wing, though Lord Blackmore had it converted to bedrooms." "And the hearth? When did stories about it begin?" "That's the curious thing." Bridget moved closer, her voice dropping. "Grandmother swore the hearth was normal when she started service. It was only in Lord Ashford's final decade that the stories began, about 1860 or thereabouts." The timeline fit. The modifications Brennan had found showed weathering consistent with 13 years of use. But that raised another question. Had Lord Blackmore discovered the mechanism and decided to use it, or had someone shown him? The cellar, perhaps, demonstrating the estate's unique asset, as Lady Blackmore had suggested. That afternoon, O'Sullivan found Brennan in the library, cross-referencing architectural drawings with his own measurements. The steward's usual composure seemed strained, his 42 years showing in the lines around his eyes. "His lordship is anxious for your report. He has another business meeting in 3 days. My investigation isn't complete. Perhaps it could be." O'Sullivan moved to the window, watching something in the courtyard below. "A man of your experience surely knows that some mysteries are better left mysterious. The hearth serves its purpose. Why question Providence?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Brennan kept his expression neutral, but internally he was calculating. O'Sullivan knew. Of course he knew. A steward would have to coordinate the performance. Someone had to know when important meetings were scheduled, had to ensure the chamber was accessible, had to clean up the copper residue afterward. "Are you suggesting I falsify my report?" "I'm suggesting nothing." O'Sullivan turned from the window, and Brennan saw something unexpected in his face: desperation. "I'm simply observing that Lord Blackmore values the hearth's reputation. That reputation brings business advantage. Business advantage maintains the estate, provides employment for 63 souls from the local villages. Sometimes, Mr. Brennan, truth serves fewer people than carefully managed fiction." After O'Sullivan left, Brennan sat alone with his diagrams and his dilemma. The mechanism was there, physical and provable. But proving it would destroy more than Lord Blackmore's reputation. It would ripple outward, servants dismissed, families hungry, the estate possibly sold to someone who'd care nothing for local employment. He was still pondering when Lady Blackmore appeared in the doorway. She moved differently when she thought no one was watching. Less performance, more purpose. She examined his diagrams with an intelligence she usually kept hidden, tracing the chimney's path with one finger. "You've found it, haven't you? The trick." Brennan said nothing, but she read the answer in his silence. "I need to know how it works." Her voice carried an urgency he hadn't heard before. "Not for my husband, for myself. There are things I need to understand about this house, about the agreements made when we married." She was offering something, information, perhaps, or alliance. Brennan recognized the negotiation beginning. In his experience, when the powerful started bargaining with tradesmen, it meant the ground was shifting under everyone's feet. The 22nd of October brought unseasonable warmth, the kind that made men suspicious of weather's intentions. O'Sullivan intercepted Brennan in the stable yard at dawn, his face carrying the particular strain of a man juggling too many secrets. "We need to speak plainly," the steward said, glancing around to ensure Timothy was nowhere near. "You've found the mechanism. I know you have. I've seen your diagrams, the way you look at the chimney now." Brennan continued checking his tools, letting silence force O'Sullivan's hand. The steward pulled out a leather purse heavy enough to make its contents obvious. £50 sterling. Enough to make your troubles disappear. All you need do is confirm the hearth's supernatural nature and complete your other repairs. "And if I refuse?" O'Sullivan's expression hardened. "Then questions might arise about the quality of your previous work. The Hendersons' chimney fire last year, tragic, but these things happen when repairs aren't properly done." The threat hung between them like a blade. Brennan knew the Hendersons' fire had been caused by their penny-pinching refusal to clean their flues, but accusations had a way of sticking to tradesmen, regardless of truth. He pocketed the purse without counting it, watching O'Sullivan relax fractionally. "I'll need time to complete my report properly." 3 days. Lord Blackmore has another meeting scheduled." After O'Sullivan departed, Brennan found Timothy examining the hearth with newfound intensity. The boy had been making his own observations, sketching details in his apprentice book with meticulous care. "Mr. Brennan, I've been thinking about the viewing slot. Someone would need to know exactly when to drop the copper. That means they'd have to hear the conversation clearly." "Smart lad." Brennan nodded encouragement and Timothy continued. "So I tested it last night. You can hear every word from that chamber, clear as if you were standing in the room. What that means whoever operates the mechanism hears every business dealing, every private conversation held before that hearth." Brennan finished the thought quietly. Information more valuable than gold in the right hands. Lady Blackmore found them later that morning, moving through the house with the studied casualness of someone definitely not looking for them. She waited until Timothy was sent on an errand before speaking. "My husband's meeting in 3 days. It's with railway investors from Belfast. If they pull out, he'll be ruined." She paused, choosing words carefully. "I need to know who else knows about the mechanism, who operates it during meetings." "Why tell me this?" Her smile was bitter as unsweetened tea. "Because you're the only person here who doesn't benefit from the current arrangement. The servants need their positions. O'Sullivan has his hand in every profitable dealing. And my husband, well. But you, Mr. Brennan, you're just trying to do honest work." That afternoon, Brennan made a discovery that shifted everything. Hidden in the estate's architectural records, misfiled among drainage plans, he found correspondence from 1861. Lord Ashford had commissioned the modifications from a theatrical designer in Dublin, a man who specialized in stage effects for the city's grander productions. The letters detailed not just the hearth mechanism, but others throughout the house: speaking tubes, hidden passages, observation points. Blackmore Estate had been designed as an elaborate stage, and every owner since had been both director and player in ongoing performances. But who was the current stage manager? Bridget provided the answer inadvertently, chattering while she brought afternoon tea. Mr. O'Sullivan's been up at odd hours lately. Cook saw him in the main house at 3 in the morning last Tuesday. Said he was checking windows, but all the windows were checked by the footman at sunset, like always. Tuesday, the night before Whitmore's visit. Time enough to prepare the copper, ensure the mechanism was ready. O'Sullivan wasn't just complicit, he was the operator, the man who turned conversation into theater. That evening, Brennan played chess with Father Doyle, but his mind kept wandering to moral mathematics. 63 local people employed, families fed, rents paid, all balanced against systematic deception. The priest noticed his distraction. "You're troubled, Thomas. The investigation? If revealing a truth would cause greater harm than maintaining a lie, what's a man's duty?" Father Doyle moved his queen with deliberate care. Aquinas would say, truth is always preferable to falsehood. But Aquinas never had to explain to hungry children why their fathers lost their positions. He looked up sharply. Is the lie actively harmful? It's used to manipulate business dealings, to gain advantage through fear and superstition. Ah, the priest captured Brennan's bishop. Then you're weighing immediate harm against ongoing corruption. A scales that never balances easily. Walking back through darkness, Brennan made his decision. But first, he needed one more piece of information. The October chill had returned, and overhead, stars emerged between racing clouds like truth between carefully constructed lies. The estate's library held secrets like a miser held coins, reluctantly, and only revealing them to those who knew exactly where to look. October 24th found Brennan surrounded by ledgers and architectural plans dating back 60 years, dust motes dancing in autumn sunlight that slanted through tall windows. Timothy sneezed repeatedly, his 16-year-old enthusiasm somewhat dampened by the archival fog they'd stirred up. What emerged from the records was a pattern of deception that predated Lord Blackmore by decades. The theatrical designer from Dublin, one Jeremiah Morse, had installed his mechanisms during Lord Ashford's residence, but the story went deeper. Previous owners had made their own modifications. The speaking tubes Bridget's grandmother remembered, the hollow walls that carried sound. Each generation had added to the estate's capacity for surveillance and manipulation. "It's like an onion," Timothy observed, then blushed at his own simplicity. But the boy was right. Layers upon layers, each owner discovering and expanding upon their predecessors' deceptions. Lord Blackmore hadn't corrupted an innocent house. He'd simply inherited and embraced its existing nature. Brennan found what he'd been looking for in a bound volume of household accounts from 1843. The original commission for what would become the Truth Hearth's ancestor, a simpler mechanism involving phosphorus and alcohol, designed to create spiritual manifestations during seances that were fashionable at the time. The family had been in financial straits, and supernatural performances for wealthy guests had provided necessary income. "Mr. Brennan," Bridget appeared in the doorway, her usual composure cracked. "You need to come. There's been an accident." O'Sullivan lay at the bottom of the servants' stairs, his left arm bent at an angle that made Timothy turn green. The steward was conscious but sweating, his face gray with pain and something else. Fear? "Fell," he gasped as Brennan knelt beside him. Checking something." But Brennan had examined those stairs professionally. The third step from the top was loose, yes, but not enough to catch an experienced man who'd walked them daily for 20 years. And O'Sullivan's boots showed fresh scratches, as if he'd tried to catch himself on something that wasn't there. Dr. Murphy arrived within the hour, setting the arm with professional efficiency, while O'Sullivan bit down on a leather strap. Later, dosed with laudanum, the steward grabbed Brennan's sleeve with his good hand. "The meeting, tomorrow. Someone needs to... the preparations." His eyes flickered toward the drawing room, and Brennan understood. Without O'Sullivan, no one would operate the mechanism during Lord Blackmore's crucial meeting with the Belfast investors. The performance would fail, and with it, potentially, the entire estate's financial structure. That evening, Brennan found himself in unexpected council with Lady Blackmore and, surprisingly, Bridget. The three of them sat in the housekeeper's room, neutral ground where class boundaries blurred slightly. "O'Sullivan's fall wasn't accidental," Lady Blackmore stated flatly. "Someone wanted him unable to perform his usual duties." Bridget nodded slowly. "There have been others nosing around. That Mr. Whitmore sent 2 men last week asking questions in the village. And someone's been in the records room. I found papers displaced, though nothing missing." A conspiracy of investigation, then. Whitmore trying to prove the deception, O'Sullivan removed from action, and Brennan caught in the middle with his dangerous knowledge. He thought of the £50 in his room, blood money or insurance. "There's something else," Bridget said quietly. "My manuscript, the one I've been writing about the estate, someone read it. The pages were out of order, and there's a tea stain I didn't make." Lady Blackmore's eyes sharpened. "You've been documenting the house's secrets?" "For 3 years, my lady. Not to harm anyone, just someone should record the truth, shouldn't they? Even if it's never published." The two women looked at each other with unexpected understanding. Both observers in a world that preferred them ornamental, both documenting what they weren't supposed to notice. Brennan felt like he was watching alliance form from necessity and mutual recognition. "Who else could operate the mechanism?" he asked. Lady Blackmore laughed, bitter and brief. "Who do you think taught O'Sullivan? My husband knows exactly how it works. He simply prefers distance from the actual operation. Plausible deniability, he calls it." The 25th of October arrived with frost that silvered the grounds like premature age. Brennan watched from his window as Lord Blackmore paced the terrace, cigar smoke marking his agitation. The Belfast investors would arrive by evening. Without the hearth's psychological advantage, negotiations would depend purely on merit, something that clearly concerned his lordship. Timothy brought breakfast and news. The servants are saying O'Sullivan tried to get up, but the doctor forbade it. And there's something else, Mr. Brennan. I was in the drawing room early checking our measurements, and I found fresh copper filings in the hidden chamber." "Someone's been there in the night." The game had changed. Someone had accessed the mechanism, prepared it for use. But who? Lord Blackmore himself? Or another player entirely? Brennan spent the morning completing legitimate repairs to other chimneys, maintaining the pretense of routine work while his mind churned through possibilities. Every person in the house had motives: servants who needed employment, a lord who needed success, a lady who needed security, a steward who knew too much. The 27th of October brought rain that hammered the estate like accusations. Brennan discovered Timothy in the stable loft just after dawn, the boy's face white with terror, his apprentice notebook clutched against his chest. Someone had cornered him there. His tools were scattered, his coat torn at the shoulder. "It was O'Sullivan, Mr. Brennan. He's not as injured as he pretends." The words tumbled out between gasps. "He caught me copying the mechanism's measurements." "Said you'd been planning this from the start. to expose the estate, then offered to install similar devices in other houses. Said he has proof you did the same in Waterford 2 years ago. Brennan's stomach turned cold. There had been an incident in Waterford, a chimney modification he'd refused to do because it would have created a fire hazard. The client had threatened his reputation then, and now O'Sullivan was resurrecting that conflict, twisting it into something damning. He said if I don't support his story, he'll ensure I never work in Ireland again, that my family's debts will be called in. Timothy's voice cracked. My father owes £12 to McKenna's shop. It would ruin us. The web of coercion stretched wider than Brennan had imagined. He helped the boy to his feet, mind racing through options. O'Sullivan, even injured, was orchestrating something, but what? The Belfast meeting had passed 2 days ago without the hearth's performance, and according to kitchen gossip, Lord Blackmore had lost considerable ground in negotiations. They found unexpected sanctuary in Bridget's writing room, a converted pantry where she kept her manuscript hidden behind preserves jars. She listened to Timothy's story while making tea with the automatic movements of someone processing dangerous information. O'Sullivan's desperate, she concluded. Lord Blackmore blamed him for the mechanism's failure during the Belfast meeting. Never mind that O'Sullivan was legitimately injured. His lordship doesn't accept excuses. She pulled out a leather journal, pages covered with her careful script. But here's what's interesting. I've been watching who goes where, when. Look at this. Her records showed movement patterns throughout the house. O'Sullivan visiting the drawing room at odd hours. Lady Blackmore in the library during times her husband believed her at prayer. And most intriguingly, Lord Blackmore himself entering the servant quarters on 3 occasions when O'Sullivan was absent. He's been meeting with someone below stairs, Bridget said. The second footman, James. And James's brother works for Whitmore in Dublin. The conspiracy revealed itself like smoke clearing from a room. Whitmore hadn't given up after his humiliation. He'd planted an agent in the house, turned Lord Blackmore's own suspicions against his staff. And O'Sullivan, sensing the changing wind, was now trying to position Brennan as the villain of the piece. Father Doyle arrived that afternoon for what appeared to be a social visit but was clearly more. The priest settled into the library with the authority of someone who'd heard confessions that could topple estates, his 61 years carrying wisdom earned through observing human frailty. Thomas, I've had interesting visitors. O'Sullivan came to confession, or what he claimed was confession, while actually spreading poison about your character. And Lord Blackmore requested I provide moral guidance about maintaining necessary deceptions. He paused, eyes twinkling with dry humor. It seems everyone wants divine endorsement for their earthly schemes. What did you tell him? That God sees all truths eventually, a comment they each interpreted according to their needs. The priest pulled out a chess piece, a white king, and set it on the table. But more importantly, I've learned something. The original mechanism wasn't installed by Lord Ashford. It was commissioned by his father during the Catholic emancipation debates. He used it to intimidate Irish Catholic merchants, making them believe God himself opposed their business dealings. The irony was sharp enough to cut. A mechanism designed to oppress Irish Catholics was now being exposed by one, while being used by a Protestant convert who'd married into the Anglo-Irish gentry. History's circles within circles, each revolution bringing new players to old games. That evening, Brennan made his decision. He gathered his evidence, measurements, photographs Timothy had taken with the estate's camera, chemical analysis of the copper residue. But as he organized his findings, Lady Blackmore appeared at his door. "They're planning something for tomorrow night, All Hallows' Eve. My husband has invited local worthies for a demonstration. He intends to prove the hearth's power publicly, restore confidence." She held out a brass key. "This opens the private study where he keeps his correspondence. You'll find letters from the original installer, Morse, proof that Lord Blackmore knew about the mechanism from the start." "Why help me?" Her smile was sad and calculating in equal measure. "Because when this ends, someone must be positioned to maintain the estate. If my husband falls entirely, we all fall. But if he's merely embarrassed into honesty, perhaps something can be salvaged." The 28th of October ended with Brennan in possession of enough evidence to destroy everyone. Letters, photographs, testimonies, truth accumulated like soot in an uncleaned chimney, waiting for the spark that would set it ablaze. Timothy slept fitfully on a cot in Brennan's room, afraid to return to his usual quarters. Outside, wind howled around the estate's corners, and somewhere in the darkness, alliances shifted like smoke in disturbed air. All Hallows' Eve arrived with unseasonable clarity, as if the weather itself wanted an unobstructed view of the evening's proceedings. The estate bustled with preparations, servants polishing silver, arranging chairs in the drawing room, building up the fire in the truth hearth until it roared like something alive and hungry. Lord Blackmore had invited 12 local dignitaries, men of substance who'd heard whispers about the estate's supernatural properties and come to see for themselves. Brennan positioned himself carefully. He'd sent Timothy to the village with sealed letters, insurance against whatever might unfold. The boy had protested, wanting to witness the confrontation, but Brennan knew the value of protecting the innocent from the explosions that occurred when lies met truth at velocity. By 8 o'clock, the drawing room was full. Judge Harrison from Cork, 2 railway directors, the Protestant minister, several landowners, and surprisingly, Father Doyle, who caught Brennan's eye with an expression suggesting he was there as witness rather than participant. Lord Blackmore stood before the hearth like a conductor preparing his orchestra, his 55 years carrying the authority of sustained success. "Gentlemen, you've heard rumors about this room, about this particular hearth. Tonight, I'll demonstrate that some things exist beyond rational explanation." His voice carried the confidence of a man who'd never lost a crucial gamble. "Mr. O'Sullivan, despite his injury, has agreed to assist." O'Sullivan entered, his arm still splinted but moving with suspicious ease. He positioned himself where he could observe everyone, including the concealed entrance to the hidden chamber that Brennan had discovered. The steward's eyes swept the room, paused on Brennan, narrowed with calculation. "Perhaps," Lord Blackmore continued, "we should begin with simple truths and falsehoods. Judge Harrison, would you make a statement, something verifiable?" The judge, a man who'd spent 30 years parsing testimony, stood with legal gravity. "I state that I have never accepted a bribe in my career." The flames danced normally, orange and gold. Several men nodded approval. Then O'Sullivan stepped forward, his good hand reaching into his pocket. "My lord, before we continue, perhaps Mr. Brennan should share his findings about the chimney inspection. After all, he's been most thorough in his investigations." The trap was sprung. Brennan could feel it closing, O'Sullivan trying to force him into either complicity or confrontation. But Lady Blackmore moved first, gliding to the center of the room with perfect timing. Actually, I have something to demonstrate." She produced a small leather pouch, identical to the one Brennan had found in the hidden chamber. "Copper filings, gentlemen. When cast into flame, they burn green. Quite spectacular, really." She threw a pinch into the hearth. The flames flashed green, brilliant and unmistakable. Gasps rose from the assembled worthies. Lord Blackmore's face went from red to white to gray in the span of 3 heartbeats. "Furthermore," Lady Blackmore continued, her 32 years carrying unexpected steel, "there's a hidden chamber behind that stone. There, the one with a slightly different mortar. Someone sits within during important meetings, listens to conversations, and creates these effects on cue." "Margaret!" Lord Blackmore's voice cracked like breaking timber. "What are you—" "Telling the truth, Cornelius. Something this room hasn't seen much of lately." She turned to the guests. "My husband didn't create this deception. He inherited it. But he embraced it, used it, and now it's destroying the estate's legitimate business." O'Sullivan made his move then, producing papers from his coat. "These documents prove Brennan was hired to expose the mechanism, then offer to install similar devices elsewhere. He's the one who actually—" Father Doyle interrupted, standing with ecclesiastical authority. "Those papers are forgeries, rather poor ones. The watermark is from a mill that only began operation this year, yet the letters are dated 1871. The room erupted. Accusations flew like sparks from the hearth. Judge Harrison demanded explanations. The railway directors talked of fraud charges. Lord Blackmore stood frozen, watching his carefully constructed authority crumble like badly mixed mortar. Brennan finally spoke, his voice cutting through chaos with tradesman's clarity. "The mechanism is 40 years old. Every owner of this estate has used it. Lord Blackmore knew of it when he purchased the property. I have documents proving the seller demonstrated it privately. O'Sullivan has operated it for the past 5 years. But the original sin belongs to none of them." He pulled out Morse's original designs, spreading them on the table. The technical drawings were beautiful in their precision, annotated with theatrical directions. "Create wonder," one note read. "Make them believe in something greater than commerce." "The question," Brennan continued, "is what happens now? The mechanism can be removed. I can fill the chamber, seal it permanently. The hearth will function normally, nothing but stone and fire. Or it remains, and everyone here becomes complicit in knowing a secret that's worthless once known." Judge Harrison examined the designs with professional interest. "Fascinating. Utterly fraudulent, of course, but fascinating." He looked at Lord Blackmore. "You've made legal agreements based on advantages gained through this deception." "Every negotiation involves theater," Blackmore responded, finding his voice at last. "I simply had better staging." "That's one interpretation," the judge replied dryly. "Courts might have another." Lady Blackmore moved to her husband's side, not in support exactly, but in the unity of shared consequence. Whatever happened, their fates were intertwined. O'Sullivan tried to slip toward the door, but found Father Doyle blocking his path with gentle implacability. The 1st of November dawned cold and clear, with frost painting the world in crystalline honesty. The drawing room looked different in morning light, smaller somehow, ordinary. Just a room where people had gathered and truths had emerged, like smoke from a properly functioning chimney. Brennan worked alone, filling the hidden chamber with a mixture of mortar and broken stone, sealing away 40 years of deception one trowelful at a time. The legal authorities had come and gone during the night, taking O'Sullivan with them. The steward faced charges of embezzlement. Bridget's meticulous records had revealed years of skimmed accounts, phantom purchases, and redirected funds. The truth hearth had been his cover, allowing him to blame failed negotiations on supernatural intervention while pocketing bribes from both sides of various deals.
Lord Blackmore sat in his study, aged a decade in 2 days, signing documents under Judge Harrison's supervision. Not criminal charges, the judge had decided that destroying the estate would serve no one, but civil agreements. Reparations to Whitmore and others who'd been manipulated. The sum would hurt, but not kill, leaving the estate functional, but humbled. "You could have exposed everything immediately," Lady Blackmore said, watching Brennan work. She dressed simply today, no longer performing the role of decorative wife. "Why didn't you?" Brennan considered his words while smoothing mortar. "A chimney that doesn't draw properly fills a house with smoke, makes it unlivable. But tear it down completely, and the house grows cold. Sometimes repair is better than destruction." She nodded slowly. "My husband wants to offer you permanent employment, estate manager, now that O'Sullivan is gone." "I'm a chimney engineer, my lady. I know heating systems, not people." "Perhaps. But you understand how things truly work, not just how they appear to work. That's rarer than you might think." Timothy returned from the village that afternoon, bringing news that traveled faster than horses. Word of the truth hearth's exposure had spread, but interestingly, the reaction wasn't what anyone expected. The Protestant minister had given a sermon about the dangers of superstition. Father Doyle had spoken about the nature of truth itself, and the villagers, with the practical wisdom of people who lived close to the earth, had mostly shrugged and said they'd suspected something of the sort all along. "It's the talk of every public house," Timothy reported, excitement making him forget his earlier terror. "But they're more interested in O'Sullivan's theft than the hearth. Mrs. Murphy says her grocery bills finally make sense. She always wondered how the estate consumed so much flour that never became bread." Bridget appeared with tea and her manuscript, the latter now openly carried instead of hidden. "I've been thinking about my book," she said. "Perhaps it shouldn't be about secrets and deceptions. Perhaps it should be about how houses shape the people within them, and how people reshape houses in return." The idea had merit. Blackmore Estate was more than its deceptions. It was centuries of accumulated history, each generation adding their own layers of meaning and misdirection. The truth hearth was just one chapter in a longer story about power, performance, and the stories people told themselves to make sense of their world. By evening, the drawing room chimney was repaired, the hidden chamber sealed so thoroughly that future generations would need to demolish the entire structure to find it. Brennan tested the draw. Perfect, clean, honest air flowing as physics intended. The hearth would still burn, would still warm the room, but it would never again flash green at convenient moments. Lord Blackmore entered as Brennan was packing his tools. The older man moved carefully, as if his bones had suddenly remembered their age. He stood before the repaired hearth, watching normal flames dance normally. "It was my edge," he said quietly. "In a world where everyone lies, I had a way to make them believe I could see through them." "You still can," Brennan replied. "You've spent 5 years reading people's reactions to that hearth. You know their tells, their nervousness, their signs of deception. The hearth was never magic. You were the one interpreting the performance." Blackmore laughed, short and bitter. "A conjurer who believed his own trick."
There's a lesson there, I suppose. There always is, my lord. The question is whether we learn it. That night, Brennan took dinner in the servants' hall for the last time. The atmosphere was subdued, but not despairing. With O'Sullivan gone and his network of corruption exposed, many of the servants found themselves better off. Back wages appeared, supplies that had been delayed arrived, and the constant anxiety of navigating the steward's schemes lifted like fog before sun. Father Doyle joined them, bringing a bottle of exceptional whiskey for medicinal purposes. As it passed around the table, stories emerged, other houses with their own secrets, other employers with their peculiar methods of maintaining control. Every estate, it seemed, had its version of the truth hearth, its own mechanism for converting architecture into authority. The question, Father Doyle mused, whiskey making him philosophical, is whether revealing truth always serves justice. Some lies are kindnesses, some truths are weapons. Brennan thought of Mary, his late wife, and the truths he'd told her versus the ones he'd withheld during her illness. Hope could be a kind of lie, but perhaps a necessary one. The hearth had been a cruel lie, used for advantage. But what about the stories people told themselves about loved ones, about possibilities, about tomorrow being better than today? 6 months later, on a May morning when Ireland looked like paradise temporarily made manifest, Brennan received a letter at his workshop in Cork. Timothy, now 17 and considerably more skilled with both tools and words, read it aloud while they sorted equipment for the day's work. Lady Blackmore wrote with the measured elegance of someone who'd learned to say much while revealing little. The estate continued, transformed but functional. Lord Blackmore had embraced what she called radical honesty in his business dealings, a strategy that initially puzzled, then eventually impressed his associates. Without the theatrical advantage of the truth hearth, he'd been forced to rely on actual negotiation skills and, surprisingly, had discovered he possessed them. The drawing room serves its proper purpose now, she wrote. We held a musical evening last week. The fire burned steadily throughout, never once changing color, despite the usual collection of social fabrications and romantic exaggerations that such gatherings produce. I find I prefer it this way. Uncertainty makes conversation more interesting. O'Sullivan had been sentenced to 3 years hard labor, though rumors suggested he was using his time to write a memoir about estate management that no publisher would dare print. The stolen funds, what could be recovered, had been distributed among the cheated servants and tradesmen.
Bridget had used her portion to attend a secretarial school in Dublin, her manuscript temporarily abandoned in favor of more immediate prospects. But it was the letter's postscript that made Brennan pause. The new steward, Mr. Collins, recently discovered another peculiarity while renovating the East Wing. A series of mirrors installed behind walls that allow observation of certain rooms from hidden passages. We've decided to leave them in place, but seal the passages. Future generations should have their own mysteries to uncover, don't you think? Timothy looked up from the letter, his understanding of the world having deepened considerably since that October when they'd first approached Blackmore Estate. She's right, isn't she? Every house has its secrets. Every house, every family, every person, Brennan agreed, checking the edge on his chimney brushes. The question isn't whether secrets exist, but whether they're used to harm or protect. They were interrupted by a new client, a merchant named Henderson, who'd recently purchased an old manor near Kinsale. The man had the nervous energy of new money trying to establish itself, his 40 years wearing ambition like an ill-fitted coat. "I've heard about your work at Blackmore Estate," Henderson began, then paused meaningfully. "I'm interested in comprehensive chimney services." Brennan understood the implication immediately. Word of the truth hearth had spread, twisted in the telling, until some believed he was a man who could install such mechanisms rather than expose them. He set down his tools deliberately, meeting Henderson's eager gaze with steady disappointment. "I repair chimneys, Mr. Henderson. I ensure they draw properly, that smoke goes where it should, that fires burn safely. Nothing more, nothing less. But surely for the right price." "There is no right price for wrong work." Brennan turned to Timothy. "Show Mr. Henderson out. We're not the tradesmen he's looking for." After Henderson left, muttering about missed opportunities, Timothy asked, "How often does that happen now?" "More than you'd think. The world's full of people who believe advantage can be built into architecture, that tricks can replace honest dealing." Brennan returned to his work, the familiar rhythm of preparation soothing. "But chimneys don't lie, Timothy. They either work or they don't. There's honesty in that." That evening, Brennan played chess with Father Doyle at their usual tavern. The priest had aged visibly in the past months, the weight of his parishioners' confessions growing heavier with each year. But his mind remained sharp, his humor dry as good wine. "I heard Henderson approached you," the priest said, moving his knight with practiced ease. "The man's been asking all over the county for someone to build him special modifications. He'll find someone eventually. There's always someone willing to build what others want, regardless of what they need." "Speaking of building," Father Doyle's eyes twinkled, "I've heard Timothy's been walking out with the Murphy girl. Thinking of settling down, perhaps?" Brennan smiled. The boy had indeed been courting young Ellen Murphy, whose father ran a respectable building supply business. A good match, practical, grounded in solid trade rather than elaborate deception. He's young still, but he's learned the importance of strong foundations. They played in comfortable silence for a while, the tavern noise flowing around them like water around stones. Finally, Father Doyle spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of contemplation. "Do you regret it? Exposing the truth, huh? You could have taken Lord Blackmore's money, confirmed the supernatural explanation, lived comfortably." Brennan considered the question, thinking of Mary, of Timothy's future, of all the choices that led a man through his days. Comfort built on deception is like a chimney with hidden cracks. It might draw properly for years, but eventually, inevitably, it fails. And when it does, the whole house fills with smoke. The priest nodded, capturing Brennan's poorly defended bishop. "Spoken like a true engineer. Everything reduced to function and failure points." "Or," Brennan countered, taking the priest's rook in return, "spoken like someone who's seen enough houses to know that the ones built honestly last longest." Later, walking home through Cork's narrow streets, Brennan thought about the truth hearth one final time. It had been a remarkable piece of engineering, really, not just the mechanical trick, but the entire construction of belief around it. Generations had contributed to its myth, each adding their own elaborations, until the lie became more real than truth. But now, it was just a fireplace again. Burning wood to make warmth, drawing smoke up and out as chimneys had done for centuries. There was something satisfying in that return to simplicity, to purpose without pretense,
Tomorrow, he'd inspect the Flanagan family's kitchen flue. Next week, the courthouse chimneys needed their annual cleaning, and Timothy was ready to handle simpler jobs on his own. The stars were clear above Cork, and somewhere in the distance, Brennan could hear music from a late-running public house, voices raised in song about love and loss and the eternal hope that tomorrow might bring better fortune. He pulled his coat closer against the chill and quickened his pace. There was work in the morning, honest work with measurable results, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.